Welcome, everybody, to the final panel discussion today of the third annual Panagora Pharma CX Tech Summit. Our panel today will be discussing digital and media and how that can enhance or the challenges pertaining to customer experience. Joining us is Michael Jafar from Evolus, Courtney Kober from Bayer, Kirti Mahajan from Merck, and Elizabeth
Behringer,
even though you're still listed as your maiden name on the screen, from Spring and Bond, a consultancy that works very deeply in the programmatic space. So congratulations to Liz, who got married 2 weeks ago. And so we didn't get a chance to update the name change on the platform. So I'd like for you to go around and just introduce yourselves to the audience, a little bit about what exactly it is that you do. And if you have any disclaimers, you can go ahead and state those. Or if you'd like, I could share my screen with a disclaimer for a few minutes. But most people have been saying them in real time thus far today. So Michael, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Mike Jafar. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for a small biotech company called Evolus. Evolus is a performance beauty company, and we have a lead product called Jeuveau, which competes against Botox. And the indication for the product is to soften the glabellar lines. Launched the product about a year ago, and we were predominantly a all digital launch with the sales force, obviously, but heavy in a digital launch. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. But I'm more interested in Liz's wedding through COVID. I've not met anybody that's gotten married through this era.
So yeah, introduce yourself, Liz, and give us some fun facts about the nuptials.
Yeah, so I'm Elizabeth Behringer, new name, getting used to it still, getting used to saying the word husband. I had a pandemic wedding here in upstate New York where we also bought a house during the pandemic with 17 guests. So we were very, very socially responsible and did a nice intimate affair, but we survived. And I launched my consultancy at the beginning of this year because I saw really that we were at the precipice of a lot of change. And then the pandemic happened. So I was right. I just didn't realize how right I would be. And I work with life science brands across med device, pharma, you name it, I probably touch it. And our team is doing everything from media buying, especially in the programmatic space, but also helping advise clients on sort of the technology landscape, how things are changing, and where things are going.
Awesome. Kirti, have you gotten married in the last couple of weeks?
I have not, but two of my closest friends are getting married in the next couple of months, so more pandemic weddings. So it is happening.
Well, I think it's a feather in your cap if you are invited to the inner circle of the.
I know.
You're one of 17. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Kirti Mahajan. I work at Merck in oncology in their integrated customer engagement team. And what I work on is the digital strategy, so partnering very close with marketing and working with a bunch of different vendors and seeing what will have what we can use to have the optimal customer journey. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
And of course, Courtney, get married recently, or
no major life moments during the pandemic, so just keeping on trucking.
And what do you do over at Bayer?
Yeah, so I'm Courtney Kober. I've been with Bayer for about 5 years now. I've been in the pharma industry for about 10 years, and my current role is really in a business transformation role to help brands across audience types use data and technology and content in the right way to deliver a more optimal customer experience. And I think COVID definitely has played a role in that and accelerating that probably for all of us. But yeah, really in that business transformation space, building on that multi-channel background that I have.
Awesome. So we know that customer experience is important, and there is a lot of thought and intention that goes into creating an optimal customer experience. But we want this to focus on digital and focus on media. And Michael had mentioned that they had just did a digital launch. So that should be very important component to what we're talking about. So the first question I'd like to start with is, how are pharma brands integrating their advertising efforts with customer experience with the use of digital and media? So let's start with you, Courtney, because you are working with a business transformation in terms of that. So maybe that has been part of that transformation.
For sure. Yes, I would say media is definitely a key piece of that overall transformation approach, and integrating all of those channels together will help us deliver that more optimal customer experience. So customers now, they want to be met where they're at. And that could be in media channels, it could be in those more traditional channels. But pulling that customer, that HCP, that patient along in the journey requires not only the media channels, but that integration, so that you can bring them into that loyalty stage and get them on board with your brand or your product.
Kirti, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so honestly, I'm not unable to hear what Courtney said. So I did not hear any of that. I don't know if anyone else is having the audio issues. So if you don't mind skipping me for now, when I can hear, I will let you know what I think.
Okay, no problem. Liz, talk to me about integration.
Yeah.
Customer experience and advertising efforts. We should have been doing this for years, right?
Yeah, and in a lot of ways we kind of have. I think that pharma marketers are starting to get smarter about piecing together the disparate pockets of data that are available to us, especially on the HCP front. Gone are the days that you don't know what's working and what's not working with the HCP media. Everything is completely measurable and trackable, and you can pull in those data sources to help inform other tactics that you might be deploying. So media really should be sort of a way to push information out to those HCPs, but also pull more information about them into your overall marketing and sales strategy. So it really does transcend media in a lot of ways. And on the DTC front, there's obviously going to continue to be a black hole, a black box of sort of data capture that exists there. And that's really, for privacy reasons and we're not really going to ever get to the point where we're tracking that stuff on a one-to-one individual basis outside of our CRMs. But I certainly do think that the types of audiences available to us and the types of first-party audiences that we can collect in a privacy and regulatory compliant way is super exciting and something that we're constantly helping clients build upon.
So, Michael, you're a pharma marketer. Are you getting smarter, as per Liz?
Just this conversation made me smarter. I spent about 7 years in traditional pharma and then moved into this kind of B2B, B2C space where our customers are plastic surgeons and dermatologists, where patients have just as much in the decision making as a plastic surgeon. Where in my previous world, it was ophthalmologists and optometrists, and basically they had all the authority. And so it's been fun to see the different approaches in terms of marketing and that approach. But I'll tell you, if I were to step back, I'd say, healthcare and legal professions have always been kind of last to enter the tech era, and are behind everything beyond just tech. And I'm now starting to see a different profile of a marketer, even a sales rep. And I'd say Silicon Valley is influencing what we do. And so let's say one of our first hires at Evolus was the head of design, who used to be the head of design at Facebook. And the first thing he did was journey map, which was just a foreign comment to journey map anything. But he journey mapped our consumer and our professional. And then in the world of DTC and media, ultimately influence, we look at an omni-channel approach. And to Liz's point, everything is measurable in today's world. And because the technology's caught up, long are the days where you just pick up an Oracle system and plop it into a company, and that's your only option. And right now, everything APIs into one another. And so if you have the right journey map, which we spend a lot of time and money on, and then we scour the earth for the right software to speak to one another, the effectiveness of marketing in today's world is much better than where it was before, no matter what side of the fence you sit on.
Kirti, are you live with us now?
Yes.
Okay, we got that taken care of. Maybe the same question. Are you getting smarter? You're a Pharma marketer.
Yes, absolutely. I think the amount of data that we have available to us, it really allows us to be smarter. We're, especially with HCP marketing, definitely able to really learn about HCP behavior. What are they interested? What are they not interested in? You know, how many times do they engage with us? I mean, all of this data is available at our fingertips, allowing us to do our jobs better and allowing us to communicate to our customers in the way in which they want to be communicated. So I think with all of the data available, it's been a game changer in the pharma space, and I'm excited to see where things can go as new technologies evolve.
Well, we're not allowed to know where everything's going because we're just at the infant stages of this, according to our other speakers that we had today. So we're living history. Michael, tell us a little bit about your digital launch. You said you had a sales force, but it was, you know, weighted heavily in digital and a bit non-traditional. But what were you using? What worked? What didn't work?
Yeah, I'll allude to two things. And I had the fortune of helping build this thing from the ground up. So I didn't have to reverse engineer technology or systems into a traditional model, which is always easier than taking a large company and trying to get it to pivot left.
Like Courtney's doing.
It's a big undertaking, and I'm not envious of that position because it's really hard work, and it's hard to sunset, you know, not only mentality but also systems. So we launched this hybrid model with a highly specialized sales force and a transactional app. And so if I were to kind of simplify it down to those two things, where customers can create an account and purchase our product through an app as much as they can interact with the sales force. You know, by and large, the most effective, you know, equation here is or element of the equation is the sales rep. They're highly compensated and they are very effective. But it was always intriguing to me to see if customers can order their, you know, their utensils and their utilities and all the stuff through a website. Why couldn't they order their product when they wanted it? And we saw orders coming through at midnight, and we saw orders coming through at, you know, 2 a.m. when we're all asleep. And so I'm not saying that's, you know, the driver of it, but the fact that we had a technical solution, I think became more appreciated, especially now post-COVID. Nearly, I think 42 or 43% of our sales were going through the app. Pre-COVID, now we're like 80+%. And so it made the reps much more effective and efficient, where they could then rely on their skill set to develop practices and get them to look at our product over others versus be order takers. So that's one element of it. Sorry, go ahead, Seth.
No, I was just going to ask you how much media did you guys do to support that, if you know, if any, or.
Yeah, so on the flip side of it, on the media, we did something rather unique. This is only our second quarter into this, and so we're just getting the data back. But in our loyalty program, and obviously many companies have loyalty programs for customers, if you make it in our top 3 tiers, we will take an ad out behind your name, your face, your practice. And we would do that because we realized as you journey map the consumer first recognizes a disease. And I'm not going to, you know, say a glabellar line is a disease. I'm nowhere near an oncology stage, which is, you know, furthering humanity versus what we're doing. But a frown line is important to a lot of people. And when they start to search it, that's where kind of the range of options became a little too hard to absorb and figure out what to do with. So we figured we would bridge the two unknown entity, which is a solution and a provider, on one advertisement spot. So it truncated a lot of that search activity down to a single kind of go-to person. And so that we call that our co-branded media ad. And we will literally take your face, your number, your practice, we'll elevate it, we'll put an ad, and we'll run it within a particular zip code. So we stopped the national DTC awareness, and we got very hyper-local kind of marketing initiatives, just mainly against that journey map.
That's incredibly innovative. Not 100% sure if we can apply that specifically to pharma, although there is some hyper localized marketing and things of that nature that's out there. Courtney, Michael mentioned the app and then mentioned media. There's always a disconnect between media and if you have an app. So what are your thoughts on connecting those? Are they connected? You know, how do you sort out that type of data? Is it, you know, or is it still a big mess?
Yeah, so it sounds like the app is probably the destination that you want to drive people to. And I think you could treat that similarly to maybe a website, and how you might deploy media to encourage a consumer or that HCP to land on your website. And again, that's meeting them where they are across the web. Programmatic is a great way to do that. You can identify those audience attributes for your HCP, your patient, your consumer, and deploy the right content at the right time to that person to encourage them to then go to your website, say, or your app, to either learn more, to request, a rep visit, to download a particular piece of content. So I think you can use media as a driver to your ultimate destination, whether that's an app or your website. And I think what brands are starting to see now is that, particularly through programmatic, they're able to launch massive test and learn opportunities, but at scale. So they can rapidly deploy content, even dynamically, get some quick learnings on who their audience is, who's engaging with that content, who is going to that ultimate goal, and then optimize in real time. That's something that we're starting to see a bit more across the industry, and it's great to see the investment in media and it working hand in hand with all of the other channels.
I see Liz is licking her chops to jump in on this one.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on what Courtney said?
Yeah, I think Courtney's spot on, and Mike is as well. A lot of brands are really intimidated when we start to say, well, what's your first party data strategy? They're like, we don't, do we need to hold data? Like, we've got our CRM, but really those visitors to your website and those visitors to your app are the seed of a first party data arsenal. And it's a really strong one to start to understand who's engaging with your brand, how often they are, what kind of content they're interested in. I'm sure, Mike, you know exactly when doctors are on your app and when they're not, and you can start to pivot when the rep emails, right? So those are the kinds of things that you want to string together to piece that customer experience, so that the physician doesn't have to think about you. You just show up when they need you, and that's a combination of things like paid search or social presence. Social retargeting even, and just making sure that you kind of have this omnipresence within the customer's lifestyle, but not too invasively, because it's definitely very possible to quickly become, that pesky backpack ad that's following you around the internet, that I don't even have to explain. You guys get what I mean.
So, Kirti, talk to us a little bit about, Liz mentioned first-party data strategy, and I know that you are an expert in the HCP field, which gives us an advantage because we can know who they are versus the patient. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the wealth of data available to us these days, and even history from browsing the internet. What are the search terms that these physicians are using? What types of content are they browsing? What websites are they visiting? I mean, honestly, it's kind of creepy at the amount of data that we have and how much we know about these target physicians that we have. But the benefit to pharma has been really knowing their customer well. And then to Liz's point about oversaturations, right? We want to make sure that we're not bombarding them either. So, what is that level? Like, where can we really break it off without losing their interest or losing them? So that's also an important thing to keep in mind. But I think in terms of like the data that we have and knowing the customer, that gives us really good information on how we can potentially get their interest, get their time. What different content and channels will they engage with, and all of that insights really helps us to put together a really good and solid digital strategy for them.
When people ask me what I do, I try to explain to that, then they always bring up the creep factor, right?
Yeah.
That Kirti mentioned, and the goal is to hyper personalize for everybody down to the individual, but at the same time, people don't want or don't understand the idea of hyper-personalization to create a better experience for them. So how do we balance those two things, Michael?
I'm on mute, of course.
Yeah.
Let me just clarify.
How do we balance being creepy with leveraging data, and how do we make the customer understand that? Because normally an alarm goes off if the creep factor goes off, but if you're having a great experience, there's no alarm.
That's right. I think Steve Jobs was great at saying this, that you appreciate technology when it simply works, right? And if technology simply works, there was a lot of effort in design and process and project management and understanding exactly what it's there to solve. So from a data interpretation and application standpoint, to Liz's point, if you over abuse it, whether it's through email or through ad or through text or any form of beyond kind of the traditional and into the omni-channel, then it becomes that spam call you're getting constantly that you finally just want to pick up and say, stop calling me, right? And so the idea of the right data scientists in many organizations are now putting these growth managers in place where they take the data and they tell the audience owners exactly what to do with it and how to manage through it, becomes a much better way to solve for this versus handing everything over to a media agency and giving all the content to media and just say, bombard these folks. And here's all the lookalikes and just go after them, because they don't necessarily care about the intimacy and the frequency because they're paid to just deploy. Where internally having the skill set and interpreting that data also puts you in the driver's seat of how often you should intrude.
Courtney, how do you manage creepiness?
Yeah, so I think it starts with investing some upfront time to get to know the customer, to understand and appreciate what their experience is with maybe your brand if you're in market, or with comparable brands if you're not yet in market, and then put up those guardrails so that you aren't inundating that target with boundless programmatic ads or boundless emails. It's taking that step up front to get to know what you need to do further on. And I think that's a place where we often rush through or rush by that stage and don't take the time to map that out.
Counterbalance to that might be, email philosophy, which is, you bombard people with as many as you can. Eventually, they'll give up. And that works very effectively for some different markets, but not necessarily for pharma. Liz, what do you think? You're an expert in managing the creepiness versus the personalization.
Yeah, and selfishly, as a consultant helping brands bring a lot of the media capability in-house, I do have to echo what Mike said, which is understanding where media and other digital touch points fit into your overall marketing strategy is super important for that very reason, because there are otherwise just very different areas of the organization handling how your physicians, which in a lot of cases for oncology or even just rare disease indications we've worked on, there might be 5,000 doctors who are really your true prospects. So you only have 5,000 opportunities to get this wrong. You know what I mean? So really taking the time to again, I can't overemphasize enough. People expect personalization, but they also expect that you're going to know when they do or don't want to hear from you, and how they want to hear from you. And you're really supposed to be able to predict that. And the great news is there's tons of technology out there to help you automate a lot of these things so that you don't have to have the human element and the question mark and the media agency that just wants to spend the money. You know what I mean? Forget frequency caps, release the Kraken. So I definitely do agree. It is an art and a science in a lot of ways.
But it hurts so much when someone unsubscribes, or you have to take that personally. I was going to phrase this next question in a couple of different ways, but I think I'll just throw it out there as an open-ended question. What is your opinion of programmatic, Kirti?
Yeah, so I think programmatic it works, but I do feel that there are other avenues now to become a little bit more personalized and targeted. You know, I would say that it's good as a supplemental program. However, I do feel there are many other avenues to explore as well, that can really get the right message at the right time to the right person. So that's what I would say about programmatic.
And Courtney, you mentioned programmatic earlier in the conversation with regards to testing and being able to evaluate programs. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've seen some people use programmatic as a way to understand their audience. Like I was saying previously, you know, if you deploy that campaign to a variety of audience attributes, then you can learn, you know, who is more likely to engage. And I think programmatic has a key role in certain stages of the funnel. It's obviously much better at that upper, you know, awareness level. It's probably less so impactful unless you're using, you know, a retargeting strategy further down in the funnel. But it has a place, and it has the opportunity to drive huge reach at great scale. So it definitely has a role in the overall picture, I would say, and can contribute not only you know, website visitors, but learnings about your audience that you can then apply to your other channels.
You probably also realize some value in the budgetary arena with programmatic versus other areas of media that you could place advertising. I know Liz is going to agree with you, right?
Most certainly. I mean, obviously, having spent a lot of my career in programmatic, one of the most common misconceptions about programmatic is that it's only applying to sort of the open exchange and, you know, sort of real-time bidding. You know, the word remnant often comes in. But really what programmatic really means is automated, right? So removing the manual black box media buy of the past and making it something that the buyer has more control. And so I think that there are a lot of ways where programmatic needs to fill some gaps for health. I can't agree more with what Kirti said, which is programmatic's going to solve some problems, but not all. There's no replacement for a peer-to-peer conversation with two physicians who respect one another and are talking about treatment options that help their patients. A banner bought programmatically is not going to do that, right? So understanding where it fits in the overall marketing strategy, and programmatic is a great and efficient way to make sure that you have that omnipresence and that you feel bigger than you might be from a budget perspective. In a lot of the smaller brands that we work with, it's a great way to make sure that they are never dark and always in market with something to these like high value physicians and even trying to find new prospects that aren't on their radar right now.
Michael, programmatic, good, bad, indifferent?
Not indifferent and not good and not bad. So I think the comments that Courtney and Kirti said are spot on, as well as Liz. Look, we're a society of extremes, right? And see our political platform. We swing one way, then we swing back the other. Back in the day, it was all about SEO, and we all swung there. And there was a lot of web development and that programmatic media buy. It's just because it's easy to understand one thing and go after it. The reality is, in today's world, for the life cycle of brands, if they're young with small pockets, programmatic is great because it gives you scale and efficiency, right? But at a certain point, to Courtney's comment here, you need to use programmatic in a smart way, not as a tool for deployment, but as a tool of measurement. Because if we could A/B test at scale, you have confidence, and then you can deploy with efficiency. So it's good for smaller companies like ourselves with lesser of a media buy because you want to get as efficient and as many impressions out in front of the right audience. But at a certain point, it becomes an overused tool, and you should kind of scale back.
Do you know how many programmatic emails you're going to get in about 5 minutes?
Just by saying that word.
Programmatic providers for saying that. We do have a question from our audience from Jim Steinberg. Appropriate for everyone. Courtney, are you satisfied and are using the data that you get back from your media partners?
Yes, it depends on exactly what Jim means by media partners, but I would always encourage that direct relationship with the actual person who is running the media. So whether that's, the Facebook or the trade desk, whoever it is, I would encourage your data and analytics team to have that direct partnership and relationship to define upfront what data you expect to see, what those KPIs are, and how you wish to exchange that on an ongoing basis. I think transparency is hugely important, and that's one of the ways that you can increase that transparency. And I've seen that be incredibly beneficial for us. And in terms of, are we using the data that we're getting back from media engagements? Absolutely, definitely. We are using that. We are using it to inform, things like customer segments, messaging, other optimizations that we can make.
Kirti, are you satisfied with the data that you're getting back from your media partners, or is there room for improvement?
So honestly, I am satisfied with the data that I'm getting back. I think from an ATP perspective, we are able to get a lot of detailed information: where they're clicking, what they're clicking, how long they're spending, what day of the week they're clicking. Like, there's just such in-depth data that's available. So I would say I am satisfied. The thing that I think that can use improvement is really having similar engagement definitions across of different media partners, just because there's different offerings. Not everything is apples to apples. And when looking to assess a multi-channel or omni-channel strategy, it's really important to be comparing apples to apples when we're doing different third-party and vendor analyses. So that's something that I think can use some improvement. But in terms of the data, I think it's there. It's just putting strategy around the measurement of all of these different partners.
And Liz, are you dissatisfied? Please be dissatisfied, because everyone else is
dissatisfied. I don't think there's enough data. I'm kidding. There's tons of data. I think that it's all about making sure you know what data to expect and what to do with the data once you get it. And so being very proactive about developing a reporting plan that includes not only physician level data that might be piping in, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly. I don't know what cadence is right for your brand, but going out of the gate, have a plan and know what you plan to do with it, because then you can architect the campaigns accordingly. So again, it can be as detailed or as vague as you set it up to be. It's all about making sure that you have that plan going into it, instead of figuring out after the fact, because a lot of the time, especially on consumer, you can't answer those questions after the fact.
So you're saying you are responsible for your own satisfaction?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Michael, are you satisfied with your data? You'll be our final response of the day, as we'll move to the happy hour breakouts after this. But what do you think?
It's not a binary answer. It's not a yes or no.
You're so.
And I apologize, but these are highly intelligent components of the broader equation, and media agencies know exactly what they're doing. And the question to you, Jim, would be: are you taking action from the data you're getting back? And if the answer is no, then there is the sense of dissatisfaction, because we're not short of data, whether it's through internal, as Courtney said, or external through media partners. And if it's actionable, depending where you are in your life cycle, then it's great data and you should be happy. But in today's world, it's no longer a black box where you send it off to a Nielsen report and they come back and here's what the Nielsen report said, because the impressions off TV a month ago was XYZ. Data is available. Everyone has relationships with Facebook and Google. And so the media component to it, or media partners, are just an element to it. If it's actionable, it's great.
And I think that there is as Liz said, you are responsible for your own satisfaction, but at the same time, the media partners could probably do a better job of making the data actionable, for the clients, so you guys can move forward with that. So we are at the end of our time here. I want to thank you all very much for a very interesting conversation, and thank everyone else out there that joined us for the 3rd annual Panagora Pharma CX Tech Summit. We do have some happy hour / breakout sessions that you can find on the agenda, just like the earlier breakout sessions. Jump in, join a conversation, have fun. But we thank you for your participation, and thank all of our great speakers and guests today. And we will see you soon. with another Panagora event. So thank you very much.